Michael, I'm the Chief Career Officer at VT. I've been with the company now for a long time, 14 years. And I'm going to kind of go through a couple things with all of this. I mean, a lot of it is kind of, on the upfront, it's kind of how we work. It's a little bit about us and also, I mean, where we've grown to. And also I'm going to kind of do it from also the perspective of like how we present to clients, and how we kind of like set up how, we're talking about the work that we do and kind of those pieces. But then I'm also going to kind of go into a little bit more of my personal philosophy around kind of the work that we do, and also how I try to stay kind of more grounded in it. I think that creative work is really hard, and especially the business side of it is one thing, but then also, I mean, doing creative work is a naturally kind of vulnerable thing to do because like you're putting yourself out there and you're putting your ideas out there and everything. And I think that oftentimes we overlook that for kind of the hustle of it all, which is tough. But we're all people. So anyway, I will get started from here. So, all right. I really believe that everything that we should do should be fun in it. There are parts of it that are not fun. There's a lot of parts of it that are not fun. But I think that, I've tried to kind of maintain a little bit of the joy to it in kind of how we've, structured it as a business, structured it in the, how we engage with our people, but also the process of doing it. Like this is designed for experience. The process of doing it should be as fun as actually what we are actually putting out there in the end. And I kind of try to remind myself of that on a daily basis in the projects, because even I get down on them and pissed off and cliented and kind of all the different things. It happens to all of us. It's totally cool. Sometimes it's really not cool, but at the end of the day, like it's a really fun industry that we're kind of in. So quick of it, VT. So we're kind of something unique because we've grown a lot over time and changed, and we're kind of something between an agency, kind of something between a design studio and interactive tech company, kind of between production company, but we've really kind of taken and focused on how are we telling stories, how are we building spaces, but also how we're utilizing technology and doing it mostly because we're really passionate about emerging technology. It's the things that really get me excited, gets a lot of our team excited. And so finding unique ways of applying it is really how we've built historically and from kind of the ethos of what we do, but also, the reminder of, there's so many cool things to explore, engage with, and kind of find new ways of solving similar problems that we've really applied. We're very hands-on. We produce the work that we make. We work with a ton of talented people from different vendors to freelancers. Also, I mean, we are really lucky to work with some really amazing clients as well that kind of give us the space to go after ambitious things that sometimes might seem a little bit riskier from a business perspective, but they do give us the space to kind of explore stuff, which I feel really, really fortunate about. Um, we've built our team now over time in kind of an interesting way, a little bit of a different model. But we're about 80 full-time members, and that is across New York, LA, and then a few other remote locations that we have people. But primarily LA is kind of the hub. And then our office in New York has been growing over the last couple of years as well, with kind of production and creatives out there. But we have it kind of separated into we have our creative technology department, which is headed by two people that one is focused on software and one is focused on hardware, from a leadership perspective. And that is on the software side, it's full stack, it's web. We Touch Designer still has a very special place in our heart, and always will. So we're still doing a lot of kind of like build and development there. On the hardware side, it's mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, prototyping, and R&D. A lot of kind of custom hardware that we produce, but then also, how are we taking different off the shelf things and then applying them in kind of different ways. Creative team is a mixture of concept and development, creative strategy. I like to say we provide a wayward home for ex-architects because a lot of our environmental design team are come from traditional architecture background and then wanted to see things get made a little bit faster. But we have our environmental design practice and then also digital side of what we do as well, which is a lot of content, a lot of graphic design, a lot of also kind of different emerging tech and also real-time systems is becoming has been for quite a while a big part of kind of what we're doing. We then have our production team, which really, I mean, is the support system to a lot of it. Then also shop and development. We actually have two spaces for this in our office. One, we have our shop, which is kind of more traditional, actually kind of build and prototyping. We don't do full scale fabrication in-house. We work with partners for that, but we've built it in a way that if we want to R&D something really rapidly, so that way we can communicate out to the fabricators that we are working with, that's where really the value is. And our ability to kind of set up demos, tests quickly, try things, break things. We've broken more technology accidentally than I think. I mean, it's a constant problem, but we break a lot of shit. But then also from there, we also do have we have growth and partnerships, which is largely kind of a mix of kind of accounts and also business development, which is an important part. And I'll kind of talk about our kind of approach to that in a unique way later on too. We do a lot of different stuff in kind of how we engage with clients, but it's shifted over time. I mean, in the beginning, it was largely what we kind of thought of as like supplemental creative services, where we would come on, we would help kind of form an idea, that was already partly there, craft it, kind of find new ways of expressing it, abstracting it, things like that, and then kind of providing process to it all the way through delivery. But now I would say probably 80% of the work we do, we own the creative up front all the way through execution, where we're doing the concepts, development, delivery, and the briefs that we're getting are becoming more and more open-ended. And it's largely from kind of trying to understand a business goal from the client we're working with, and then how we can kind of apply it all the way to bringing it to life, which is kind of give us a whole bunch of kind of interesting problems to solve, but also interesting opportunity with it. And we've been all over. So we work all over the world. We have a project going to Australia next week. We have done a ton of work in Europe, obviously all across North America, China, and then more recently we have had a couple projects also in the Middle East, is its own way of doing things. But we kind of have found that we provide a lot of like that top level expertise and kind of approach. And then we have amazing partners that are local in a lot of different countries. A lot of that comes from we have a really heavy background in live music touring, and kind of, building scalable approach across stuff, which I'll talk, that's a whole other presentation about that part of my life, it feels like. But it really is, it taught us a lot about being scalable with small teams in kind of local markets and stuff too. So this is how I talk to clients about things, which is very similar to how I talk to everyone. But it's transitioned over the years in that 100% of our business is direct to brand now. It kind of has shifted over the time of the company, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. But we really do love showing up in a partnership with the kind of core brands that we work with, and then we are providing less of kind of just like a direct service and more of a expertise in what we're doing, and also kind of a more well-rounded approach is what we try to do. But then also like learning a client from the very beginning of when you start working with them is a process in itself, right? You learn the things that they respond to, what they don't respond to. And so we really kind of wanted to make sure that we were building longer term partnerships where we were continuously in cycle with a lot of these clients, because then we just don't have to do the relearning of that, like getting to know you kind of aspect, and how we can kind of keep building on things that we find successful and then seeing the work kind of continue over time, which is also just really, really meaningful in kind of the direct kind of space of it. So starting with Netflix, we do a lot of different things for them and have for a number, probably about 6 years now. And we build all sorts of stuff. We have worked in direct consumer marketing, which is kind of more, stunt and your standard experiential. We've worked in retail experience with them, building out, kind of what is that transition from, what we're learning in entertainment and kind of the space of that, and then applying it to different markets and also different kind of experiences and the dynamic of that experience. And we also work in a lot of how are we kind of continuing the IP that it's existing in screen and bringing it out into the real world in kind of unique ways. Like I said, we've been working with them for quite a while. It changes, the audience tactics change, we've shifted somewhat from kind of a lot more of like the marketing focused initiatives to kind of some deeper development stuff, which has been also kind of that evolution. Google. We've done a lot of Google. We've been working with Google since probably 2016, and have seen a lot of things change, obviously, and happen. But when we first started with them, it really was about how are we creating a personality to products and also kind of off the tech offering that they were doing, especially in the very beginning of Google Assistant and kind of how are we personifying interaction with that product and also teaching an audience how to interact with them. We've built a lot of things. I really like this big dark pyramid because it's the most ungoogly looking Google thing that has ever we've ever done. But even for them, like we've worked with brand experience in ways of how are we connecting with audience? How do we kind of let the brand take a backseat so that there is more ownership from a cultural perspective and stuff as well, which, again, we learn things that work, we try to apply new tactics, and then we kind of shift how we're kind of thinking and working across this stuff. A lot of it right now is obviously, I mean, how are we personifying AI experiences and demos to make sure that an audience can understand the interaction and everything. But we've done keynotes, we've done custom builds, we've done permanent work, we've done experiences, and we've done cultural events as well. Like my favorite, huge, large pyramid at Coachella. But it has been that, we're applying it largely started from a creative technology standpoint and then has shifted over time to experience design, interaction design, obviously the backend technology and everything like that as well. A lot of tech brands. Meta. Meta, we've been working with the last couple of years in a lot of different capacities. So we actually did the entire retail campaign for the V1 of Ray-Ban Stories, Ray-Ban Meta, the connected eyewear glasses, which that was about a 2-year project and ended in over 2,000 store fixtures and experiences all over the world. We've worked now with WhatsApp, especially in kind of how are we, celebrating brand partnerships with, Mercedes Petronas and kind of things like that. But also we've done wild experiences, like how do we take, especially with the first Quest headset, how are we taking the experience out of the headset and kind of personifying it in more of a immersive kind of factor to it as well. So we've seen across the business from, hardware to storytelling to retail to also then, your more traditional kind of marketing stunt and kind of like big statement work as well. And then McDonald's. It's probably one of my favorite brands to work with, selfishly. When you're working with them, you eat more McDonald's than you kind of want to, mostly because it's around. But it's been incredibly interesting because it's a brand with honestly a whole bunch of lore to it. They have such a story with the characters, with the history of the brand, with all these different things. And so we've worked with them on how do we kind of bring that personality out and apply it to different experiences, working from executive level to a B2B and kind of different investor relationships all the way down to franchisees and then also general public and marketing as well. It's kind of gives us that huge width that we're seeing of the same tactics for experience applying to wide audiences. It's been a lot of fun. It's taken us kind of all over the place. But they also, I mean, are an interesting brand that has been growing as well, in just also how they communicate with people over the last couple of years. And it's been fun to kind of be a part of that journey with it. All right, that's the client side. That's the kind of work that we've been doing. We're really lucky to have a number of clients that we are kind of consistently in process with, and working with and developing with. But it wasn't always like that. It started in a really, really different way. And so it, has kind of taken us into a lot of ways a path of like kind of growing up in some ways, but then also, we set out with goals. And as kind of, a group, we wanted to accomplish those goals to give us kind of more opportunity to try more ambitious things always. Um, but that's what it looked like 10 years ago in our office. I sat at a folding table for a couple years. That was my desk. And this is kind of the squalor we lived into it. Big empty space, a couple guys trying some kind of crazy things out, where, we were kind of building out and also kind of figuring out who we were, also kind of in the process of doing it. We all came from different backgrounds. I came from theater and design, production design and lighting design, and kind of then, figured out that I was really, really interested in all of the different kind of pieces of technology that, can be applied in that medium. And, we all kind of brought the idea of the things that we really loved, we were really, really interested in, and then started applying it to the work that we wanted to go after. And that is kind of always been the drive that we've had, which, has kind of brought us to here. But yeah, it started out with, this was 10 years ago in our second office that we're still currently in. And it was just five of us sitting in the middle of this giant room with different tables, and there's an armchair for somebody's desk, which I think we only threw out that armchair like 2 years ago. But we started in a in in a kind of a crazy hectic way. Um, I was really young. This is me on the left, 10 or 14 years ago, probably, or 13, with my bus drivers from a tour that I did in Ireland, at the end of being on the road for 2 months. And then this is me just about a year and a half ago on the right, doing a kind of large project for McDonald's. And I kind of put this in here because the tour was probably the worst tour I've ever been on. It was awful. It was a terrible time. But I still look at it and think about, I had a lot of fun, kind of in the end, and learned a lot through it. And then this picture of me on the right, I haven't slept in like 5 days. It was probably one of the most challenging projects we've ever done. But at the same time, the attitude with it and the attitude that everyone on the team brought to it, it still was a lot of fun. And we actually, produced something that we were all really, really proud of, even though the challenge to it was kind of a big thing. So I like to look at these photos sometimes to remind myself that, I sometimes slept on a bus for a couple months and had terrible disco load-ins and load-outs in small nightclubs in Germany. But it's really kind of still about enjoying the process of doing it. So from a kind of growth standpoint, this is a kind of timeline over the last, 2009 to 2014. And so I put this together in kind of a couple ways of thinking about, there were core points that changed the business of what we were doing and the growth that we were kind of having with it, and also then structure that we put to things that also kind of gave us that chance to level up what we were doing, how we were doing it. But then there's also work that we produced that gave us a lot of opportunity, but also with some of the more kind of challenging, exciting things we've done as well. So at the very beginning, literally from like 2009 to 2013, we were doing frat parties and bar mitzvahs. That was like, it was like four of us, and we had $10,000 budgets or something like that. And that $10,000 budget was like a really, really, really good budget for a frat party. But we were just kids. I mean, I was 22, 23, and kind of we didn't really look at this as like what we were doing was actually a business or a career. Um, we kind of then got into around 2013. We did our first large scale projection mapping project. We did City Hall in LA. That was with four of the older Barco 40K projectors that are basically the size of like a Mini Cooper. And that was an incredibly challenging project for us to figure out. First time doing a complex pixel map, managing over 4K content and all of these kind of pieces to it. But then also at that time, we were doing really kind of maximizing in doing live music and touring design, which led us to a lot of different places. And that kind of gradually grew over time that we were really, really focusing on that. In 2015, we were at a level that we got interns. That was cool. Some of them are actually still here and are full-time employees. But it felt like a cool point that we were at a place that we could actually bring people into the team and teach them things and involve them in the process. Around 2016, that's when we first got our first direct to brand client. That was Google. And we were kind of working directly with them on kind of work, which was a big change for us because honestly, we were doing a lot of agencies and a lot of kind of like, somebody to get into a project at that point. I didn't highlight this one in red, but in 2016, we also did buy our very first robot, which then sat in a crate for the next 2 years or year and a half while we kind of learned and figured out actually how to use our first industrial robot. We have over a dozen now altogether, and we deploy them in a lot of different ways. 2018, we did Telestron, which is a large project with two robots, entirely creatively led of a investment project kind of for us. It was at Day for Night Festival, which unfortunately isn't around anymore, which it was an amazing, art and design and music festival that I think was kind of one of the most ambitious out there. But also in 2018, we started to establish clear departments and actually that structure of the business that we were doing and how we were kind of building out in that process. 2020 happened, COVID. I'm sure, everybody has their own experiences from it. It was a super scary time from just the perspective of, honestly, managing a business, preserving the things that we had built for so long, taking care of our people, and just kind of finding new ways to exist within it. We were lucky enough to we didn't really pivot. We found ways to kind of apply the things that we did in different ways. And it was really any opportunity that popped up, we would go all after. We did then start doing the entire rollout of Ray-Ban Stories, which, was a project that took us 2 years where we did all the design, the manufacturing, the installation, the kind of every single point of it. And from there, we kind of worked into a space that we were taking on larger and larger and larger projects. Funny enough, in 2019, we kind of made the decision to give up doing live music touring at that point. We had done a lot of big shows. And, from a personal creative aspect, I got to do a lot of fun design. I got to work with a lot of really, really interesting people. And I also got to kind of, see some things that I had always wanted to personally accomplish actually come to life. But it's a really tough industry. It burns you out fast. And for me, I just felt like also I wasn't necessarily realizing the things I wanted to anymore. And also, it wasn't necessarily adding to the growth of our company. It was really dependent on just a few people, and didn't really provide as many opportunities for the rest of kind of what we were trying to grow. So we backed out of that, and then kind of, really focused in defining the core of what we do and how we do it. In 2022, we broke 60 full-time employees, which was a big one for us. I think that like the first kind of point was at 30 employees that you got to kind of take things pretty seriously. Then at around 50 is kind of the next point. And we we were figuring out parts of it as we went. We wanted to, how do we provide, healthcare? How do we, do financial services for people in the team? How do we manage people? And especially kind of like I said at the beginning, like this is a creative industry. It's vulnerable. There's a lot of personalities, and there's also a lot of kind of, pieces of it that you want to figure out how to make people really mesh well together, to be also, the highest performing that they can be, and they can realize growth and all these kind of elements as well, which is really kind of tough to do. 23, we really locked in on management process and establishing kind of clear roles, but also giving our people more ownership kind of, from a leadership perspective of what they were doing as well. And now, I mean, I know it's, month two of 2025, but 2020, end of 2024, 100% of our business was direct to brand. We had repeat clients that we were kind of consistently working with, and still are. Obviously, it's only 2 months ago. And kind of it gave us um, you know, an optimistic look kind of where we were growing and everything as well. I put this together as kind of a timeline too, because comparatively, when we first started, we were largely production. Back in that 2009 to kind of 2015, there were a few creative employees, largely, but it was largely all of us came from a production background. We then kind of really started to formalize what is that mix of creative and production. And that was kind of the informal start of different teams and departments, but it was still all of us hands on with everything that we were doing. Then, really, from 2016 to 2020, it was formalizing and really rolling in creative technology mixed with creative and production, especially for the different kind of projects that we were doing. We were taking things on that were a lot more ambitious, a lot more custom, a lot more us not using just off the shelf things that we were finding to interesting ways to use, and building things internally, tools, process, a lot of custom touch designer tools as well. That was a big kind of time for us. Tools that we started developing back then that we're still developing today and using, and kind of figuring that out. Then really, I mean, one thing I think that the pandemic did for us, that was a positive, was really kind of formalizing how we're providing leadership, how we're engaging with teams, how we're empowering people also to, in especially kind of remote working aspect and everything like that, to, do the work and everything, where they feel connection to it, feel validated by it, all those pieces. But then from 2021 to 24, now it's a combo of a lot of things. Business strategy, being aligned with the goals that we're doing, aligning to the work that we're doing, still focused on how we grow leadership within the team, especially from, how we're building it out from a business perspective, but then also mentorship and everything as well. Creative, we always wanted to be owning quite a bit of the creative that we were doing, but wanted to do it in, a responsible way. Creative technologies, grown in sophistication, development. There are things that we do now that I couldn't have even imagined 2, 3 years ago. And then also production, growing still our technical production side, but then our more kind of traditional from a, project management and client management and everything like that as well. And so bottom line, that this purple one, it really was, it started with parties and agencies. And then over time, it was, this mix from 2015 to 2020 of where we were working primarily with agencies for most of our business. We had a few direct to brand clients, that, we were kind of coming in and doing very, very specialty things. We were doing a lot of music touring all over the world, and doing design and implementation on the road of some of these shows. And then 2020 through 24 as a whole, it really shifted where we were seeing less kind of agency work. Part of that's the size we were getting to, and also just the expertise we were taking on, and more direct to brand relationships, where we were kind of coming in and owning parts of the business that, traditionally we would have been only taking a little bit of. And then, yeah, to this point, where we come in and we're doing a lot of kind of upfront development work. We're kind of constantly looking at brand cycle, and also focusing from a business development standpoint, how are we showing up and how does that align with the goals that we kind of have as a group. Um, but all of this is really, really hard. But it's not necessarily that, um, that it's impossible. I think that's kind of one of the really, really important parts. I mean, if for me, even like I struggle, I go through dips and turns of, where do I find inspiration? How am I, you know, providing innovative outputs on things? And like you beat yourself up so much, where you're looking at something as like, is this actually a good idea or is this a really shit idea? And most of the times you're thinking it's a shit idea. But then also, managing the finances of the business. How are we growing it? Providing management opportunities for people, providing mentorship or finding mentorship. Um, clients are clients, and they are. There's some really, really rewarding relationships in there, but then there's also really challenging ones. And I think that it's how you look at the challenge that's also really important. But then also burnout. Like even for me, I dip into points where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And I'm so tired. And why did I choose this? But then I always kind of come back to it of like, I really have a lot of fun with what we're doing. And enjoy the process of doing it and the creative problem solving. And because that's really kind of what it all comes down to is this is a business of creative problem solving, and you've got all these different tools you can apply to it to figure out kind of unique ways of going about problems. And it's not really a one size fits all. Um, we get to do really cool things where people give us money to do very cool things. And sometimes I even get, to stand in front of some of the projects that we get to do live and be like, holy shit, like, you know, 21-year-old Michael doing a frat party with, his friends that he's working with, would have never imagined that we got to projection map the Empire State Building with, you know, 40K laser projectors on top of another skyscraper, in a few days. Honestly, install that's a whole other thing. But it is like stepping back and recognizing some of these moments of being like, and just also being kind of present in them of like, wow, this is really, really cool. Is an important thing that I always don't even remind myself of doing. As a, creative, I think that sometimes people ask me, is like, oh man, what's your favorite project? And I'm like, I can't tell you. Like I don't, I try to remind myself to kind of stop and actually think about what is being made. And like the joy of actually making it too. So, I mean, from that, there are things that I've learned along the way. But I also wish that I, had been a little bit more open-minded to. I mean, evolution is a big thing. It's partially reinventing yourself and reinventing the business, but it's also just like being kind of open to evolution and change and looking at it in a different way. Um, Investing in talent is a big one. I mean, there are so many really talented people out there. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them on this call, and some of you I've also gotten to work with, which has been really fun. And but also there's really, really, really cool young talent out there right now. That I did a talk at my university the other day, and the amount of young talent that I talked to that was just scared of entering the entertainment industry was kind of shocking to me. Like they they're not as deep in it as a lot of us are and everything, and it's kind of reading the signs to it, and they're scared. And so I think that that's kind of an interesting kind of point to it. It is scary. I mean, I don't know if I thought about it quite as much when I did it, but yeah. So another big one for us has been kind of marrying creative goals with business goals. This is a business. It's a industry that has a lot of opportunity to it, I believe. And one thing that we really have kind of put out there is that we want to attract the work that we want to do. And part of that is aligning on what are the ambitious things that we want to do and accomplish as a group. And then let's figure out how to go and generate that business. Obviously, make it financially viable and all of those pieces to it. But, having an approach that has, married the goals of what we want to go accomplish from a creative standpoint, from a technical standpoint, from a fulfillment standpoint, and marrying that with also the business goals of how we're growing as a group is an important thing that we've kind of tried to pay attention to over time. And it's none of it's perfect. Like, you sometimes do projects that are not the most exciting, and that's totally okay. Like it happens sometimes. But zooming out and being able to think of the big picture of why you're doing it and everything has always been something that I've always tried to remind myself of. A big one, find mentorship and then provide mentorship. I've had some people that have been mentors over my career that I've been really really lucky to work with and learn from, and kind of grow as a creative, as a professional, as in the space of marketing that we do and everything. But then also I find a lot of value of trying to kind of spend as much time working one-on-one with different team members, and kind of also just talking to people outside of our team, and comparing notes, finding the weird things that we all encounter, because this is not a straight line of an industry whatsoever. And then really the biggest one is like it's just not taking things so seriously. I think years ago I was so protective of process and so driven by the idea and how it kind of happens and stuff. And I realized I was just kind of making myself just kind of upset, and I was holding on too close to certain things and concepts and stuff. And that act of letting go has been really, really freeing. Like it just kind of allows you, honestly, for me, it allowed me to do better work, allowed me to collaborate better with other people, and kind of let the team go and stuff. But it is also a constant thing. Like, it's really hard to have absolutely no ego in this industry. Some ego is good because it protects you from certain things and stuff like that. But also, it's like at the end of the day, the work that we're doing, like I used to sit up late at night and looking at like, oh, I got to send these emails. I have to finish this presentation. I have to do this deck, and reminding myself that the world is not going to end tonight if I don't do this silly thing that I'm telling myself I need to get done, was really valuable in just kind of leading a more balanced life. Like it's really fun. This is work still. And that mix of kind of our life with it and the work that we're doing is kind of important to keep in perspective. Which I'm still learning. I do not have it figured out, but I tell people all the time to just like, don't we're not building rockets. Don't take it so seriously, and like let go and have fun with it a little bit more. And we still get to do things like this, which reminds me how much fun we're really having in the process of it. This is me, and well, also we posted this, and then Kuka Robotics reposted it, and then somebody else from Kuka emailed us and says you have to take that off the internet immediately. Like this is too dangerous for you to be doing. You don't have the right licenses on the software, and we're like, you have it on all your social media. So anyway, but sometimes you just strap up to a robot and give it a shot. And we have had a lot of fun with kind of some of these smaller moments all the way, to the bigger ones as well. So that's what I got for everybody today. I'm more excited to talk to people. So I'm going to wrap it up there.
Michael, many, many thanks. That was super, super, super inspiring. We got a few questions already. If you guys have other questions, just throw them in the chat and I will get to them. I think Scott G had our first question. Scott, do you wanna ask?
Sure
Otherwise,
thing. I think the question was, have you ever thought about doing something that isn't brand related and something internal, like something that the team has created or that you guys thought up?
Yeah, actually, we've done a lot of that. So we've tried in the past to do self-funded projects throughout time. And we kind of constantly have at least one that is operating. So Telestron, the show we did in end of 2017, beginning of 2018, that was purely from we want to try this out and tell a story with robotics. Um, so we try to do these self-funded projects that are kind of more for us to try out a new tech, a new approach, kind of whatever it is. And that has usually led to us learning something that then we're also going to apply and sell to client work as well. And so it's kind of a dual side. Like you do make the investment, and it's sometimes not as big as like robots, but it is, usually we have found ways to, fund exploring different things. And then again, like have that married to a business goal of then, applying it kind of out from that point too.
All right. Martin had a question. He said he might be stepping away, so I could ask for him if he's not readily available.
Oh,
I'll ask.
sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Actually,
Martin has a
yeah,
question.
yeah, sorry. Sorry, I was trying to find my unmute button. Hey, thanks so much for sharing. Yeah, I was curious about more about like finding there are things I've developed that I can't find a business angle for, and I don't know what to do about them. And attaching to that, um, do you have any advice for like a young creative when you have a lot? Like I wear a lot of hats and I'm trying to find something to dive deeper into, but it's hard to choose. Uh, thanks.
Man. Okay, so on the beginning side of it, and your first part of the question, Martin, I think that something that shifted for us in selling work was going into the two sides. What is the brand goal? Like what is their business goal of what they're doing that is going to justify the spend in money in the investment that they are making into the project? The other side of it too, which is something I always pay attention to, is that realistically, when you're talking to like a creative at a brand or a creative at an agency or a creative that's bringing a project to you, there's parts of it that they are really, really, really attached to, and that's okay. Like that's valuable. Identifying those parts that they resonate with the most and then finding your spin that is kind of abstracting it in a way so that they can still recognize that thing that they're passionate about in the work that you're kind of collaborating with them on has been a really big unlock, honestly, in process. Because sometimes it's easy to like you get a brief, you get an idea or whatever, and then you're coming back with a total spin on it, that is kind of more your stamp on it and everything. That's the natural kind of inclination, but it's remembering that there's still something that they're passionate about within it. And so that abstraction and finding that kind of middle ground so they can still recognize the beginning point of their idea within the work is just it's a really useful tactic, honestly. Um, the second part of that, I don't know. I go through phases of diving into things that I'm really, really interested in, but I try to think also, I really think generalism is really, really valuable because you learn a lot of different weird, diverse things. And so the little bits of like, I mean, the amount of like useless information that I've collected over time about little weird niche things is like astounding. But the zooming out and then thinking about how all those things apply to like the kind of that creative and business goal intermixed together, I think is always an important step in thinking about it. Because it's a rabbit hole sometimes. You go so deep into learning a specific skill or tactic that you kind of miss like the jump off point to start getting into another one, which I think is kind of something to zoom out and think about.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Amar, I was actually just throw my quick 2 cents on that too. If you have an idea and you're trying to find a place, for it to fit in the world, just like share it. Like people are not going to steal your idea. Like everyone's obsessed with their own ideas. No one's obsessed with like somebody else's idea. So like feel free to like share it. And like a lot of times that's where it'll like, in somebody else's mind, it'll take shape into something useful. All right, Noam, you have a question.
Yeah, today I'm asking the most basic question because, Michael, this has been extremely inspiring. I mean, you seem also kind of like the dream catcher. You're fulfilling so many things, such large scale projects, and I love the interdisciplinary approach. I'm also coming from photography and neuroscience that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but for me, I mean, this is how it is. And you've accomplished so much that I was really wondering, what is your dream? What do you still want to accomplish? What is your dream? It's simple.
uh, I it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I mean, I I think in a perfect world, someday I might be teaching. I think I'd really like to do that. I think that, I'd like to be in a place that, the, that I, that from a team perspective, that I am obsolete. I want people to grow into from our team and everything like that, that they are growing, they are becoming, you know, leaders in the things that they're doing, and professionals in better than I ever could be. I think that's like kind of the thing that I would really like to see. Which sounds super lofty and like really rosy and pink and everything like that. But I mean, it's hard. I think that I also try not to set I try not to set too many goals like that, because for me personally, it creates a dynamic of expectation that I'm creating for myself as well. And I kind of like to have little expectations, because it allows more freedom for kind of the what ifs of stuff.
I love it. All right, Justin Cohn. Hello, friend.
Ah, this guy.
Hey, what's up, man? Um, so you showed that picture where you like, I haven't slept in 5 days, and I believe you. I know because we work together, I've seen, how brutal these installs can be. You've been doing it for a while now. I'm surprised you don't look a lot older than you are. How do you
Justin,
deal
you
with
know how old I am. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But like, I mean, you don't have kids yet, I think, unless that happened when I wasn't looking. Um, that might change things for you in response to this question. But like, how do you not just get completely burned out from the installs alone? And like, how do you manage the balance? Do you have like tricks or things you do, or do you think there's like a limited timeline for you to keep doing installs the way that you guys, have to do them really sometimes?
Honestly, it goes into stamina and taking care of yourself. I do not burn as hard as I used to. I focus a lot more on routine. I focus a lot more on healthy lifestyle, a lot of water, drink a lot of water. But no, it's interesting because even on those installs and stuff like that, like I think, I showed that picture of us in the office on fold up tables. I worked 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, every single day. And realistically, I was getting less done. I had less, the work wasn't as important. It wasn't as hard and taxing, but I was just like running the engine on that stuff. And so I think that it's shifted into more balance, more kind of thinking about, that mix of like lifestyle and giving yourself time and everything like that. And yeah, I don't have a perfect answer to it or a perfect balance, but I think being cognizant of the balance is really, really important. Um, and yeah, kids will be the next thing that like throws all that off. So, it'll be kind of the next adventure with it all. But I mean, it yeah, I only have like one project like that a year left in me, I think. But you really, it's crazy. Like earlier in, I'm pounding caffeine. I'm not sleeping. I'm managing, too much on my plate. And now it's more like, okay, if I don't go and sleep for 8 hours, I know that this, task that should only take 4 is going to take 8. So thinking about the balance, and then also giving yourself kind of the self empathy for, managing that kind of like point within it is really, really important.
I love it. All right, I think we have time for one more question. Aaron, your question. I'll get to you later, man. We'll make sure.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much. Inspiring to see your timelines and everything. It's amazing to see the progress you've made. I'm curious. You said something at the beginning about 100% creative ownership. I didn't quite understand, but it kind of made me start thinking about where I am right now, which is previously coming from an advertising background, a lot of experience with clients, a lot of different markets, understanding different clients, and trying to figure out how to make my, bag of magical tools translate into things people want to hire me for. And I'm just thinking like, what I've learned this year is to try to maximize, my strengths and put those forward. And I've realized that like, there's a lot of, there's two philosophies, which is like, wait for the client to ask for whatever they're going to ask for, versus leaning into your strengths to try to attract that work. And I'm curious how you balance that and how you push yourself forward in your like most capable sense.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a tough balance because like, and really what I mean by ownership is like, where's our fingerprint on the project from the perspective of ourselves as the experts in what we do. Um, I'm sure we've all seen a project come across that. I mean, I send Blair's article about projection during daytime to like everybody, because the amount of times that I've been asked to projection map something in the middle of the day is wild. And then Blair made this perfect article that really bridges the gap for me, so I don't have to explain it over an email, which I really enjoy. And then, but really, it's kind of this, back to like the abstraction point of it, is that how do you engage with the client so that way they feel that they can try something risky and have like a support system to doing it, that you are that support system that it's allowing them to try something a little bit more kind of out of bounds than what they would traditionally do. How are you unlocking something creatively for them, that they can kind of, be that, and see that work kind of come to life, which is a tricky balance. I mean, it kind of comes down to the communication. Like, very beginning of our business, we said we did everything. And so we were non-specific about what we did, which created confusion about what we actually do. And then we got super, super specific about what we said we did. And then that also created confusion in a way, because people would be like, oh, well, you do this. And I'm like, yeah, well, we also do this. And honestly, we're kind of back to a place of being specifically non-specific. And not coming into it and saying like, we do everything, but what we're kind of more saying is like, we can do a lot, and we can allow, and we can take you kind of on the journey with us, which then kind of creates that hand holding, not from a from a micromanagement perspective, but like I'm going to take you through the experience of actually us building what we're building, so that way you're learning and getting something from it, and you're also involved in it. And so, like I said, we're in that specifically non-specific kind of phase again, which I think we're going to stay in for quite a while. But it also just kind of creates it really is about kind of creating the relationship dynamic with the client you're working with, and transitioning it from you're just providing a service to that you are providing an expertise and a really meaningful interaction that they are still paying you for, which is, it's important. This is capitalism. But I kind of say it frequently, is like the greatest hustle in life is getting paid to do what you like to do. And so, you do have to also take them on that journey with you from a client perspective.
Love it. All right. So Michael, we're at time. This was fantastic. This is super inspiring. Oh, Aaron, real quickly, read Blair Enns' books, Business of Expertise. There's some great stuff there. But Michael, this was amazing. I think it's like super, super inspiring. Is there anything you'd sort of like to sort of like sign off with? Like any sort of parting words for this group?
Man. just be nice to yourself. Like this is a really like this is a really draining industry. And I think that like it's important. Like that. I mean, I have learned things. There's things I regret, in kind of, how I've done stuff. And I think as I get, as we keep going through it and everything like that, I think that you have to remember that, what we're choosing to engage in from a business, from a creative practice and everything like that is you're putting yourself out there. And so, recognize that you are making that commitment, which is a big one. And, give yourself a little slack. You're trying something really hard. So, and yeah, and just like have fun with it. We're not saving lives. We might be inspiring people in a really big way, but we're not, there are people out there doing much more important work.
I think it's all a part of life's rich tapestry. I think
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. Michael, many, many thanks. I do want to do an LA visit to the VT Pro studio because I know you guys have amazing things.
Absolutely.
I'll get my neck brace ready for that robot.
Yeah. If anybody's at South by next week, I'll be out there. Reach out to me.
Yeah, happy to facilitate any connections. If you all are in South by, shoot me an email. I'll connect you all. I'm staying here because it's nice out and I can get good Mexican food. But join me here next week. We got 2 great feature spaces sessions for you, Miles and Sarah. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again, Michael. See y'all.
Thank you, everybody.